O vídeo a seguir não é indicado para quem é idiota e acredita na Terra plana.
Mr. Duke, let me just say it's a huge honor talking to you, and I'd like you to thank you for the time to do this. And I'd like to start off with the exposition that's going to happen in Brazil, that's bringing you here. And we now live in a time where we can say there's a sort of crisis of confidence in science. We see people questioning vaccines. We see a lot of trouble with, we have flat earthers, for God's sake. And of course, you from the Apollo era are very familiar with this, because there are people that still don't believe you went to the moon. And I'd like to ask you how important it is, especially at this point in time, to have an exposition, a great exposition from Apollo, to remember the public what science is truly capable of.
Well, I think it's very important to continue the legacy of Apollo through exhibits like Space Adventure. This would be the biggest exhibit ever in South America, and you're very fortunate to be in São Paulo to have this exhibit. It has a lot of artifacts, a lot of history of the Apollo program, objects that are full size, like the lunar module, the command module, the spacesuits, all of these things that give you the history and the technologies that went into building these things so many years ago. And 20,000, hopefully 20,000 Brazilian students will be able to attend, no charge. And they will be able to get inspired, we hope, in science, technology, engineering, and math. So that's part of the reason for the exhibit. And the reasons, just to bring history alive, this is a tremendous exhibit with the artifacts that have been brought there and collected, and will be on display. You can spend hours. If you're like me going to a museum, this would be like going to a museum, and I could spend hours reading every panel, because that's the way I'm wired. So I think you're going to be really impressed and enjoy those that come. We recommend everybody come, of course, and everybody that comes will be thrilled, I think.
Fantastic. Now I want to go back in time and remember the first time you entered the program. You were from the 5th astronaut group at that point in time, 1966. There was just Apollo ahead. I wanted to know your motivation to go into NASA and apply for the astronaut program. Did you want to go to the moon? Because this was just ahead of you at that point.
Well, I didn't think I'd have a chance to go to the moon, but I did want to be an astronaut. I had met astronauts while I was working on the Apollo guidance and navigation system at MIT, and they were very enthusiastic, very gung-ho, excited about this career. And I realized being an astronaut is the best job you could have as a test pilot. So my goal was, after MIT, was to be a test pilot. And when I graduated from that, I had all the credentials, and now I just had to wait on NASA are you going to have some more astronauts? And sure enough, 2 months after I graduated from test pilot school in summer of 1965, NASA says, we're looking for more astronauts to be in the Apollo program. And I said, that's me. And so I applied and got selected. And that started my adventure. 10 years of 6 years of Apollo, and then 4 years of a space shuttle. I didn't fly space shuttle, but I worked on it before I departed. So my motivation was to have the best job you could have. as a test pilot.
Yeah, and in July 1969, you were one of the astronauts that served as Capcom for Apollo 11, and you were on duty when the actual landing happened. And it's funny because your answer to Neil became almost as famous as his words as he landed on the moon. Do you know why NASA chose you for that pivotal phase of the mission? Why were you there at that time?
Well, I had been what was called support crew on the previous mission, Apollo 10. And the Apollo 10 was a dress rehearsal of the landing on the moon. As far as procedures go, we flew to the moon with the lunar module. The lunar module wasn't capable of landing on the moon, so we had no flight plan that would actually land them. But we did have a flight plan that they would start their descent, check out the lunar module, start their descent, and then make an abort and come back into orbit. And so I was Capcom for that. And that was so successful that the flight director, Gene Kranz, asked me, and Neil Armstrong asked me, said, "Hey, you're not supposed to be with us, but we want you to come and be part of this crew and part of this mission control team." And so Neil asked me to do it, and also Gene Kranz. And so I just shifted over with everybody else that had been there on Apollo 10. So I was very fortunate to have that experience from Apollo 10. It put me in the place of being there again with this historic landing. And it was an exciting 12 minutes of landing on the, let me tell you.
I can imagine that. And what was the most dramatic moment for you? Following Neil and Buzz to the surface as Capcom for Apollo 11, the flight of Apollo 13, for which you were a backup, or making your own landing with Apollo 16? What was, the most tense, most dramatic for you?
Well, I think I was more tense in mission control on Apollo 11 than I was when I actually landed. When you're landing in the spacecraft, you got a view out the window, and you got all the systems, and all the dynamics are there. And so you're continuing on, everything's looking really good. So you get this feeling of we got it made, we're going to do it. Whereas in mission control, you're just looking at a little screen with numbers and data, and no TV and no actual. You're just sort of imagining what they're seeing and what they're doing. So the tension gets really high in mission control because of these problems that creep up, especially in Apollo 11. And so I found it was the tension. Looking back now, the tension certainly in Apollo 11 in mission control was, in me anyway, was a lot more than it was when I was actually doing it.
And we came to know later that President Nixon at the time had a speech ready in case Neil and Buzz didn't make it back from the moon. What about you guys in mission control? Did you train for that eventuality and had protocol ready for the case it had a serious problem?
We had practiced a lot in simulations, and more than once we had crashed and didn't survive. So we knew that if we didn't do it right, and the machine didn't perform to specifications, we could have trouble. So we realized that there was some problem that could develop 10 feet off the ground where the engine tilted you over and you didn't have a chance to recover. We practiced that, but the probability of that happening was extremely finite. And so we didn't worry about it. If it happens, it happens. But your focus is on success. And so we practiced the crashes, we practiced the landings, well, let me say, we didn't practice crashes on purpose, but that's just the way the simulations would go. And I probably, in my time in Apollo 13 and Apollo 16 and 17, I probably crashed on the moon 1,000 times in the simulator. And it was, you knew if this thing happened to you, very rare, but if it happened, you're dead. But you didn't worry about it. You were just focused on success, I guess is the way I should say it, from mission control and the crew standpoint.
So you'd say politicians were more worried about the possible outcomes that you guys who were actually doing it and focusing on what was needed to be done to big success.
Yeah, we were the technical side of it. We didn't, if we kill somebody, we'd be very disappointed and very sad that we'd lost friends. But we didn't have, like Nixon, we didn't have a letter or a statement that said, well, we've lost the crew and, whatever he was going to say. But that wasn't part of our psyche, I guess. That was a more political side. We were more interested in the technical side. If something did happen, like on Apollo 13, our focus was what happened and why did it happen and how do we get out of this problem? And so the technical engineering side was for me more important than the successful talk or the unsuccessful part of it.
And during your flight to the moon, after the lamp separated, you had problems that almost prevented you guys from landing. And there were only 5 orbits to make a final call. What was passing through your heads at that time, waiting for them to decide whether you should try it or not?
Well, when it first happened, my heart sank because we were 1 hour away from landing. And when he said this engine is not working right, that meant an abort. And my thought was, oh, God, we've come 250,000 miles. I've trained for 2 years. I could see my landing site down there, which is 8 miles beneath me, and they're telling me to come home. What a bitter pill that would have been. And so we just waited and we came around the backside and they looked at the data and they said, well, stand by, you guys. We'll let you know, but sort of get back together. We started getting closer together in case we had to just, rendezvous and dock up again. And it took took 2 revolutions and for them to decide that, hey, we can't fix it, but we know what's wrong and here's a workaround. And so Mattingly was given a workaround that to give us a secondary way to control the engine. And now we're back within the mission rules. And so they gave us a go for landing and we came around, and that was actually 6 hours late. If it would have been 8 hours late, our landing site would have moved out from under us. We were in this orbit and the moon's rotating. And so it would have been given us, we wouldn't have had enough cross range to make it. But they fixed it and not fixed it, but gave us a workaround in it. And so we were successful. And of course, we were elated. Man, they're going to give us a chance. And so...
and that says a lot about the Apollo system, right? That you had workarounds upon workarounds, even when you had a almost catastrophic failure with Apollo 13, you were able to bring the crew home. So Apollo was very robust, I think.
Yes, it was. Yeah. Probability of success in Apollo was extremely high, over 99%, I think. So even with this complicated machine it you see over my shoulder, it it was an amazing machine, well built, well maintained, and so we had great confidence in it, even in spite of Apollo 13. We fixed that problem, and so we were going to be successful, and so we were.
And you live on the moon for 3 days. How did you feel spending so much time there? Did you miss it after leaving it?
Oh yeah, we didn't want to leave. We were so excited. We begged 2 more hours, guys. Give us 2 more hours. And they said, "No, it's time to come on. We low on power. Get back in." It was enthusiastic. We were enthusiastic the whole time. We had 3 rest periods, of course, so we did get some rest. But the rest of the time, we were focused on the flight plan, the traverses, what we were going to do. We reviewed all of those things and what we were going to do the next day, and made sure everything was ready to go, cleaned up as possible with the suits. And so our focus was excitement. Let's go, let's get outside. We got another objective today, and we're going to go to Stone Mountain and climb that mountain in this car, and so we were just pumped up with enthusiasm and excitement and energy. We never lost that, John and I, the whole time we were on the moon. You listen to the transcripts, and we were having fun.
Okay, proceed, please.
Okay, well, we were just having fun, and it was a tremendous, exciting 3 days. And like I said, we didn't want to come back, but we had to.
And speaking of fun, you jumped almost a full meter up and fell over backwards on your life support backpack. Was that a sign that you were getting, perhaps you guys were getting overconfident while exploring the moon in those later missions?
I wouldn't say overconfident, but I would say I learned a lesson. Don't do anything on the moon or in space that you hadn't practiced on Earth. And we had not practiced a high jump. We were doing the Moon Olympics, if you will. And unfortunately, if you watch John, he jumped and he came down straight. But when I jumped, I straightened up, and my center of gravity went backwards, and I went over backwards. And that was scary. The only time in the whole mission where I had a moment of fear. And I said, do something. So a thought had come to me, roll right. So I rolled right and landed on my right hand and my right leg. And that was enough of a cushion. So when I hit the backpack on the moon, it didn't break. And I landed hard straight on the backpack. I might have been in deep trouble. But my heart was pounding, and it was a scary moment, but I was okay. And so here I am to talk to you instead of being still up there on the moon.
And with Apollo 16, you became the youngest person to be on the moon. Did you expect that 50 years later, you'd still be the youngest person to be on the moon?
No way. I hope that I get to give this title away to the next astronauts that land on the moon, and I'm still alive. But I don't want to be the oldest person that walked on the youngest person that walked on the moon at 90 years old, or I'll be 86 in October. So I'd like to give this title. Here you can have to be the youngest person that walked on the moon. So anyway, it was no big deal. That was a four months, if you will, difference. Jack Schmitt, who was the last man on the moon, Apollo 17, his birthday was in July. He just turned 86, and I was in October, so it was just a 4-month difference. But NASA made a big deal of that, but not so much for me.
and now we're headed back to the moon with Artemis, and some people think we are now getting in a new space race. Instead of US versus the Soviets, it's now US versus China. Do you feel it's like that again? You have a unique perspective on the first space race. Is this a space race now?
I'm not active in the program, so I can't tell you what that attitude is at NASA in the astronaut office. But I know everybody wants to be first back on the moon, and we're working very hard with Artemis, and our program seems to be on track. And I'm helping with the lunar rover, the lunar terrain vehicle consulting. So I think that we want to be first back again after to come back to the moon. But I don't think it's such a race that that we would consider being second, having lost. It's not that kind of race. We're in a technological race, I guess, more than a place to land first. But our program seems to be proceeding. Congress might say, that's it, we don't want space program anymore. So you never know. But NASA seems to be adequately funded right now, and Artemis seems to be going on track. And so hopefully this decade, sooner than later, we're going to have another crew on the moon.
And to wrap things up, because I know we're out of time, what do you feel is the ultimate fate of humanity in space? Do you think we're going to colonize space? What do you think about that?
Well, I think we got God's given us a great planet here to live on, and it's we don't have to walk around in spacesuits here like if you were in Mars and tried to colonize Mars. Every time you go outside, you got to have a spacesuit on. That doesn't seem to me to be the way to live. And I wouldn't mind going to Mars for 2 months exploration, but to live there would not be very thrilling, I don't think. So I see us continuing to go to the moon, maybe to Mars eventually, but that's probably the limit of exploration for humankind. Is Mars. It's a long way, a lot of exposure to cosmic radiation, and so it's something that's, I think, in the heart of people to explore, to go, and whether you do that undersea or in a microscope or in a telescope or just in the human experience, we're wired to learn and to discover and to utilize these discoveries.
Mr. Duke, it's been a pleasure. I look very much forward to meeting you in person when you come to Brazil.
Looking forward to my return to Brazil, Salvador. Thank you very much. I enjoyed it too.
Thank
See you
you.
in a couple of months.